during times of crisis, it's not about commerce, it's about relationships. So it's about relationships. So we're saying that to you as well. Listen, if we can support you and serve you in any way, this podcast is here for you, but we're here for you as well. And the doctors who we've had more intimacy with, we found that those doctors seem to be getting the best results.
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business, so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. I'm Dr. Pete Camiolo.
And I'm Dr. Stephen Franson.
And it's an honor to be with you here today. We've been unpacking for you the Phoenix Plan, the 3-stage action plan. We've been through stage 1, stabilization, stage 2, reactivation. We talked about stacking, talked about goal resetting. Now we're talking about mobilization. And Doc, before we dig into the 10 things that you need to be doing ultimately, let's talk about some of the results that doctors that we are talking to, doctors we're working with, are having right now in the marketplace. And the amazing thing is that we have visibility in clinics and doctors all around the globe. And we know that the way the corona crisis and this has affected, each one of you, it's very regional. It's very much specific to certain areas and how things have been unfolding. And we have, again, visibility into so many practices. So Doc, let's talk about some of the things that we're hearing from our docs who are right now in the trenches serving in their local communities.
Yeah, it's been super encouraging to hear the feedback of, number one, it's trust, right? They're trusting and implementing and putting things into play. And of course, we have total confidence that they're going to get great outcomes, but it's so fulfilling when you actually see that happening and seeing that come to fruition. This is an unprecedented thing. This corona crisis is nothing like this has ever happened before, not in the US, not in Canada, not in Australia, not in Europe, Asia, and never mind globally, and having it happening all at once. So there was really no precedent. And so we jumped into our wartime leadership, like we like to talk about. We shifted from abruptly out of our peacetime leadership and into wartime leadership, which of course we've shifted from being really strategic to being highly tactical, to shifting from asking questions in a creative discovery process to telling people, right? It's like, stop doing this, start doing that, right? So in the Phoenix Plan, that was our response to this crisis. We immediately pivoted and we brought a plan to our clients, and that 3-phase plan is in full throes right now. And it's awesome to see the results that our doctors are getting, our clients are getting. First step was stabilization, right? It was about, stabilizing your business, right? Stop the bleeding, settle down the doctor, settle down the team, settle down the patients. And, if we've seen anything right now, what we know is our communities need clarity. They need certainty, right? There's a lot of confusion out there. Confusion, that just breeds fear, right? Produces fear, and that fear leads to paralysis. People just don't know what to do, right? So they sit back, and you've got these competing experts that are giving contradictory information, and there's all kinds of conflicting information. It's like you don't even know what to do if you're in a layperson's position out in the community. So of course, everybody just sits back and says, okay, so whoever has the most certainty wins. I'll listen to the person that, has the most power and makes all the rules, right? So we've seen this in our community. So what they really desperately need when there's times of confusion and chaos, is they need somebody to show up, a leader that shows up with clarity and certainty. And that's exactly what we brought to the picture with the stabilization phase. Then we moved into adding reactivation as the world settled down, so to speak. The dust started to settle, and the calamity, the chaos, the craziness became the new normal. Right now, people started listening, and they're saying, okay, so hospitalization rates are down, death rates are down. People are starting to get back into opening businesses. States are starting to open up. So we knew we could speak into our, communities listening, and it was time to reactivate. So most of our docs at this point, they're like fully engaged in reactivating their patients and picking up those people that got bumped out of the boat during this crisis. So it's been awesome to see how our missing in action report and our missing in action cheat sheet with all our scripts around those 4 different reasons people drop out of care, that reactivation campaign is just going so well. So now they're just positioned perfectly, Dr. Pete, to just stack on top of that this 3rd phase of mobilization, where it's going to be time to get back out into your community. Soon enough, the community is going to be ready. They're going to be listening and looking for a better way to better health. They're going to be looking for a new expert that has that clarity, that has that certainty, and has a plan of action for them and their families.
Yeah, it's incredible to, again, have visibility into all these practices. And so many of you who listen to this podcast, I know that you've been implementing this strategy, this Phoenix plan, and we've been hearing feedback from some of you. And I'll just say this, if this is something that's been helpful for you, we'd love to hear from you. If you're a podcast listener, hey, let us know how this has been helping you, or let us know how you're doing right now in your practice. Shoot us a message either on Instagram or Facebook. Both Dr. Steve and I are actively on there. We'd love to hear from you and hear how it's going. Also, if we can support you with that in any way, because we know that right now it's all about relationships, right? We talk about how, and we've talked about this in some of our episodes, that, during times of crisis, it's not about commerce, it's about relationships. And so it's about relationships. And so we're saying that to you as well. Listen, if we can support you and serve you in any way, this podcast is here for you, but we're here for you as well. And the doctors who we've had more intimacy with, we found that those doctors seem to be getting the best results. And so we know that's because, again, there's accountability, there's visibility, but there's actual plan and support, and they're following to that plan. And we know that what people need is direction, but direction follows connection, right? And so this connection is so important, and we're connecting with the people in our community. We're connecting with the people in our towns. And so what we're going to be walking through here in this mobilization strategy, again, it stacks on top of the reactivation strategy. It doesn't bypass it. If you don't skip a step, it's very important that we stay focused on, we're continuing to stabilize our businesses now. We're not out of that phase. We're not out of that season. We're continuing to keep our team executing on the stabilization. We're continuing to execute on the reactivation while we begin to plan and prepare for mobilization. Remember, as a CEO, we determine what's important now and what's important next. And so what's important now is we continue to reactivate. And this could go on for an extended period of time, depending on where you are at in the world. So we understand that stabilization, that's going to happen all through this crazy time. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. No one does, like Doc, you just said. So mobilization is something it's really about forward facing. Like, what are we planning for? What are we preparing for? Because as people begin to want to get back to life again, we've got to be able to meet them right where they are.
We'll be back to my conversation with Dr. Steven right after this. Now more than ever, you must be on your A game. Doc, as we move out of the dark ages of this corona catastrophe, let's ready ourselves to move into the mobilization stage and start marketing again. Are you and your team ready to be seeing a surge and influx of new patient prospects? If you're like most chiropractic practices, you may be a little out of shape when it comes to your day 1, day 2, day 3 process and procedure. We've all been focused on other things. So let us help you get back in shape so that you can bring your A game to your new patients and don't blow it for them. Remember, you can only help the ones you convert. We're going to make this easy for you and your team. The Remarkable Conversion Immersion is an intensive 2-day training on our proven new patient conversion process, and we're hosting it as a virtual live streaming event June 12th and 13th. During this virtual live training event, we will show you exactly what to do and how to do it. Discover the proven system that thousands of successful chiropractic teams have been using all around the world for years, and it's working now, today, better than ever. This is a live streaming training event, so you can train from the comfort of your home, or even better, get your team together and train from your office. No flights, hotels, or expensive meals. All the awesome TRP coaches and TRP tribe, and the best new patient conversion training available in chiropractic. You stay home with your family and sleep in your own bed. Since the COVID-19 restrictions, we have been delivering our TRP immersions as live streaming virtual events, and the feedback has been off the charts. And when you register now, you get 66% off tickets for yourself and your team while seats last. The seminar is regularly $29.97 when you attend a live venue. It's now available for only $9.97 because it will be streaming, a live event streaming. The 2020 Remarkable Conversion Immersion, June 12th and 13th. Get your tickets now. Go to theremarkablepractice.com/conversion-immersion, or simply go to theremarkablepractice.com and click on events and go to the Conversion Immersion in June. Get 66% off for you and your team while tickets last. Register now for this incredible event. You can have the practice and lifestyle you dream of. Let us help you get your team on board with a simple, proven system that works. Don't try to figure this out alone. Join this group of successful chiropractors who are eager to help you in an ego-free environment and get the tools you need to accelerate your practice this year. And now, back to our conversation.
Yeah, I mean, as you were talking about connection and some of our clients, just like I find it really encouraging. Stories always inspire me, and I just want to recognize a couple of our clients, a couple of our listeners right now who are just crushing it. Just implementation, getting great results through stabilization and reactivation. Who comes to mind initially are the Hughes brothers. We got twin brother chiropractors who are awesome, and they're just killing it. They've had their best month ever this past month, and when you think about that, that's literally unheard of at this point. It's like, how is that even possible? We've got Dave and Carla Leclerc coming out of the best month that they've seen this year. As their collections have been record collections, their volume is up. I mean, they're just pushing through and they're living out the plan. They're following the plan, the system. Kel Matovich, who's up in Canada, he's got his biggest week ever scheduled this week as far as volume goes. It's just like that seems and sounds unthinkable for a lot of people that are listening right now. It's like, how in the throes of this crisis they're following the system, following the plan. And granted, these guys, they had a great practice to begin with, so they've been following the work, following the systems leading up to this. And man, it's really paying dividends at this point. So as we move into this mobilization, as you said, Dr. Pete, it's about stacking, right? So we've gone, if you look back at the history of this crisis, March, April, May, June, we're going to use these time parameters. They're loose, guys. So don't get lost in this because there's a bit of a drift. There's a bit of a lag around the world, depending on where you are regionally, or even if you're in the States and it's whether you're in an urban area, or a suburban area, or a rural area, it's different as well. So just don't get too attached to the timeline, but just for the ease of explanation and for the sake of all of our sanity, March was really about planning and preparing for what we're going to execute in April, right? And then in April, we were executing stabilization, right? So we planned and prepared for stabilization in March. We landed in April, full guns blaring on stabilizing the practice. And then we were planning and preparing for May. And May, of course, is all about reactivation. While the team and the doctor was focused on executing stabilization, we were planning and preparing for what we were going to do in May. So by the time we hit May, the team started executing the reactivation on top of the stabilization. They didn't stop stabilizing. They kept adding value, kept creating clarity and certainty and stabilizing the business, right? But now it's about reactivating and going back out and getting those patients. And of course, preparing for what's to come next, which is phase 3 of the Phoenix plan, which is mobilization. So you're executing reactivation and stabilization and planning and preparing for mobilization, which of course is what we're going to be doing ultimately. And Dr. Pete, as you know, we've got 10 steps. That's the first one, is recognizing this is all about stacking. Don't let go of your stabilization, your reactivation as you stack mobilization on top of those other two. Because when you think about it, with an effective reactivation campaign, let's say in May in your practice, you get a whole bunch of people in June in your practice that need to be stabilized.
Yeah, I mean, it's very critical, and I just want to let our listeners know that we have a plan for you. So, part of this episode, we're gonna give you the 10 things that you should be doing for your business ultimately. So we have a downloadable PDF for you. So we want to make sure that you get that. So just pay attention. You'll be able to get that link on our website. If you go to theremarkablepractice.com/podcast, you'll see the link there. Also, if you're in our private group, we have a free private Facebook group. Love for you to be a part of that conversation if you're not already in there. Just amazing things happening. We've been going into that group and going live over these past few months, just kind of unpacking the whole Phoenix plan as coaches. So please go in there, but you can find in the folder section, you'll see that there's these tools and these PDFs in there. So please go get the resources in there. But with that being said, the second step to the plan is the phase 3 mobilization. So creating your marketing plan. And again, we talk about as CEOs, it's very strategic, right? Being a CEO in peace times, it's always about being strategic. It's always about thinking way ahead. Where now during wartime, we talk about it's very tactical. It's very specific about what are we doing right now. And so this is where we begin to, in mobilization, begin to start to lift our heads up and really think ahead again. Why? Well, because we're in the battle. We're in the battle. You know that there's a war that's going on, and that's called being in business, being an entrepreneur, right? It's a long war, like you're continuing. But we've been in a massive battle right now to stabilize our practices and then reactivate. So now it's going to be moving back into the community. So the first thing we have to do is come up with a plan. That's what we have to do, come up with a plan. And so again, we have to plan post-COVID. It's a different way of planning. We're going to have to think with a different cap on. We have to think, how will I market now differently than what I marketed before? Can I market the same after as I did before? The answer is no, we can't. But we need to continue marketing. We need to look at the three verticals you've got, or your three tributaries: internal, external, and digital. So here's what number 2 step is. Come up with a plan. What's your plan for internal marketing? Things we want to answer is, I like to look at it through the framework of what's the plan? So what's the initiative? Who's the leader? Who's going to take responsibility? Who's going to be accountable? And who's going to be a contributor? Who needs to be a part of this? When are we going to be releasing this? When is the actual deploying of this initiative going to happen? And how are we going to do it? Right? So we're going to answer those 4 questions. So when it comes to planning and preparing, you're going to be able to say, what's the initiative? Let's define what that is. So we're going to be doing internal initiative. And this applies for internal, digital, and external. What's the initiative? 2, who's going to take the lead on this, on the team? And they're going to be accountable to this. And who's going to be a contributor? When are we going to release this? When is this actually going to happen? Number 4, how are we going to execute? What's the plan? How are we going to do this? So that's the strategy. That's what you kind of look through the framework when it comes to mobilization and creating your marketing plan. And we'll be unpacking that. But internally, preparing for what you're doing. Digitally, preparing for what you'll be doing digitally. And then externally, preparing for what you're going to be doing externally. Defining what's the plan, who's going to be responsible for it, when are we going to release it, and how are we going to do it?
Yeah, Dr. Pete, it's interesting the way you laid that out. Typically you'll hear us say internal, external, then digital. But the truth is with the timeline that we're looking at here post-COVID, it's going to be internal, then digital, then external. Like, let's face the brutal facts is it's going to be an uphill battle to try to get a group of people together, never mind to get access to that group of people and have you go in and do outside talks and dinner talks, et cetera. So, what Peter Drucker says, find the gravity. Don't go uphill. Find the gravity. Right now, everybody is accustomed to Zoom meetings. They're watching webinars. They're doing everything online. That's where we're going to go next, right? So it starts internally, then we move externally, but the external is actually done digitally. And then we'll move into the external events, live events, corporate wellness, spinal screenings, et cetera. And, we're forecasting that's going to be a September, October, November initiative in a window. In fact, that's a subject for a different episode. We're actually going to double back on that and help you guys understand the wisdom behind that. I want to make sure that we're setting you guys up for success and not for failure, right? Let's look for the gravity on that. All right. So number 3 is internal marketing. So let's focus on internal marketing right now. It's time to start having this conversation. People are ready. They're ready. They're looking for that clarity. They're looking for that certainty. And frankly, they're looking for hope. They're looking for a path. They're looking for strategy and tactics. They want to start doing, right? So at the end of the day, what they've taken away from this is like, wow, this COVID crisis revealed something. We get a lot of immunocompromised people around, so the state of health in the world, never mind in the United States, Australia, Canada, wherever you're listening to this, everybody can agree right now is like 2 things. COVID is a highly transmittable or the contagion factor, the R naught factor. This is a highly contagious virus. We learned that. It's contagious to everyone, right? But it's dangerous to a very specific group of people, right? And that's the immunocompromised, right? So that's probably new terminology for a lot of communities, but we know what immunocompromised means, right? So one thing we learned was looking at the data, looking at the statistics is there's a very specific group of people and they had a few things in common called comorbidities, right? So things like having high blood pressure, having high blood sugar or type 2 diabetes, having coronary artery disease, renal artery disease, having hyperlipidemia, right? So triglyceride issues and cholesterol issues. These people had comorbidities that left them highly susceptible to this infection. They didn't fare well. These are the people that ended up in the ICU and died, right? So to the above 89 percentile. That is striking, right? So here's what we know. This this corona crisis has revealed the fact that, number one, we've got a lot of immunocompromised people. Number two, it took this chronic disease state, which everybody has been very comfortable managing, pharmacologically, right? We've been managing disease. Translation, we've been procrastinating around these problems. We took these chronic diseases and COVID has shifted them and thrown them into an acute crisis, right? So that's a big deal. We need to be having that. We need to have that conversation in our practices. This is the internal marketing. You need to be asking people questions, tableside and in your workshops and in your communications. Who do you know? Who do you know who's immunocompromised? And start listing off, these are the people that are at risk. These are the people that are compromised, right? So who do you know that's terrified of this virus? Who do you know that got sick, right? What a great way to start that conversation and be like, you know what? At the end of the day, we got to shift the conversation. We got to shift the conversation away from the strength of the virus and turn it towards the strength of the host so that people can actually take charge, take control, and recognize that they can have influence, they can get back their hope, and take back personal responsibility for their health.
And I love this conversation. We talk about as chiropractors that everything happens, from above down, inside out. So we always start within. And the same conversation that we're having internally, the same questions we're asking, the same facts, they apply as we go externally, as we go digitally. And so we want to take this same type of conversation to the marketplace through the digital platforms that you have, and eventually into the external environments that you are invited into. And so let's start with the digital. So we want to be focusing right now on being in the conversation that matters, right? You want to be in the relevant conversation. You want to be speaking to what the pain is, what's the issue at hand. And that, of course, is immunity. And so we have created the Phoenix plan. It's a package. You can actually have access to it if you don't have access to it, but it lays out exactly how to deploy this mission. And one of the tools is the Bulletproof Your Immune System workshop, which again can be done through a webinar, which is beautiful because there's no excuse and reason why people shouldn't be able to attend and get the information and the data. Now, how to deliver a great webinar, that's why you need that product, because that's what we walk through and train you on exactly how to do that. We're not going to do that today because there's a lot of layers to doing and pulling it off really, really well. But what we will say is this: you got to have a plan and you got to prepare for this. So you got to have a venue. So if you're doing it digital, your venue is going to obviously be a platform, maybe Zoom, for example, or you might do it through one of your Facebook platforms as another example. And so again, you're choosing your platform. That's step one. Then you're going to be, again, what's the technology that's needed? So you've got to be prepared. Remember, we as chiropractors, we're so used to, it's very much like hand-to-hand combat. We're used to doing things in the brick and mortar, in our offices or in other businesses. And that's how we do it. We do live talks. Not many chiropractors that I'm aware of have been doing a lot digitally. They do some things, but not what you need to be doing now. So getting familiar with technology is number two. Getting up to speed and making sure you have all the pieces and things in place to be able to pull off what you need to be doing without too many glitches or any glitches at all. And then, of course, the biggest challenge that we always face is getting people to show up, right? So that's about the promotion and the marketing plan. So that's really step three of number four here in the 10 things you need to be doing ultimately for mobilization, which is promotion and marketing. So you got to work it to get people to show up. Again, one of the factors of the reason why people weren't showing up to your office was distraction. There's a lot of voices. There's a lot of noise right now. How will you differentiate yourself in the marketplace? Why will people want to show up to your workshop? And Dr. Stephen, I think we're going to hit on that in one of the future 10 things you need to be doing, because you need to be able to nurture that audience to get into the place where they want to actually show up.
Okay, let's take a quick break and talk about Chiro Matchmakers.
Chiro Matchmakers will help you find the right person for the job. If you're looking to hire the ideal chiropractic assistant, Chiro Matchmakers will help you find the specific person missing from your team so that you can get back to using your talents to serve more people. Or if you're looking to hire the ideal associate doctor, CMM can help. Chiro Matchmakers helps chiropractors like you find the ideal associate doctor to unlock your practice potential and get you the freedom that you desire. To learn more, go to chiromatchmakers.com.
And now let's jump right back into our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, part of this is starting a conversation. So there's a couple of ways you can start the conversation. We're going to talk about both of them. Number 5 is the one-to-one communication. Number 6 is the one-to-many communication. A number, the one-to-one communications, and of course you should be doing both of these, or I should say you should be doing all of these, right? So the one-to-one communication is really more personalized. It's more customized. Of course, you can use best practices like cut and paste, et cetera, but it's a one-to-one communication. We call it sniper fire. One of our favorite tools to use is Dub. I love the personal video, right? Sending somebody a personal video. I love that platform, Dub. It's DUBB. There's a couple of services out there, a couple of apps that allow you to do this, but I love this one because it's easy to use, it's really fast, and it allows you to include links in your video message. So somebody receives something that's unique. You can send it as a text or as an email or as a Facebook messenger message, Instagram message, LinkedIn, etc. Or all of them, right? So now they get a customized video from you where you're speaking right to them, and you can refer them to a link and include the links. Like, click the link below to see the promo video that I'm doing on my Bulletproof Your Immune System webinar, or click the link below to register for the webinar, or click the link below and grab the PDF white paper on my 10 things you need to start doing and stop doing to boost your immune system, for example. You're just jumping right into the conversation that they're already having with highly relevant information, and you're giving them a call to action so that they can engage with you.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I know that, again, Doc, speaking from experience, this is something that we have used with communicating with our clients. It's something that our clients have used communicating with their patients. So it absolutely is effective. And, again, I know it's effective when I get on a call with a doctor who's saying to me, man, I'm so grateful that I learned about that tool, and that I've been doing these messages, because we've been seeing people coming back who are so thankful for the message. And there's just so much power to that. And that kind of leads into the next, which is number 6, which is the one-to-many. So again, this is more of a broadcast. Think about like the machine gun. And so again, it's maybe not as specific. It's not as like sniper, but it's pretty darn close, because when you can communicate, we always say it's always an audience of one, right? So whenever you communicate to an audience, it's always an audience of one. And so you're still speaking to the individual on the other side and to what's important for them to hear right now. So again, the platforms with which we use, one obviously is going to be your email lists. So if you're a business, you have an email list, it's going to be your Facebook or Instagram following. It's going to be maybe your LinkedIn page if you engage with that with your audience. So again, it's choosing which platform you're going to send this message out. This could be a general message. Again, you're inviting people to come to your Bulletproof Your Immune System workshop, the webinar. So you're going to send this message out as a general invite. You're going to, again, be specific about how you set this up. So when you invite them, how they get to the place where they can register, and then they get the reminder sequences so they actually show up. And again, you're setting yourself up to be able to do this through even doing like a series of, you might call it a teaser, but it's again a series of, hey, here's some of the things that we're going to be hitting on in the workshop. You start actually talking about some of these main points. Give people a little taste, like, you know what, I want to know more about that. I need to know more about that. It's also a great way to, for the person who heard you and saw that, say, hey, share this with a friend, because there's probably somebody who didn't see that, but they need to know about this. They need to hear about that. So it's a beautiful way for you as well to, through your current audience, to expand and reach beyond who your normal people would be, because again, you start inviting people that way.
Yeah, one of my favorite ways to leverage the teaser is through a Facebook private group, right? So this is a strategy, guys, that we use, and it has built our company, frankly, is to create a private group. And for many of you listeners, you're in there and you see us practicing what we preach, leveraging a platform like Facebook where everybody's already in Facebook land. Just invite them to your party, right? So what you want to do is you want to move people from these like publicly facing pages, like a business page, a personal page, or a private, a fan page, and you're moving them from that page into a private group. The advantages of that is if somebody's on one of your fan pages or business page, they only see 5 to 15% of what you post, depending on how much they engage with you. Whereas if you move them into a private group, they see 100% or near 100% of what you post, right? So that's huge. You want to add value on the front end on your fan page or your business page, your public facing page. And the call to action is just join our free private group, which is where the webinar is going to be. So do the teasers out there. Like if you're doing the 10 things you need to start doing and stop doing to boost your immune system, for example, you do 10 days in a row, do one of those things. And the calls to action after each one of those short videos, those teasers is, hey, if you like this, you're going to love the webinar that we're going to be doing on bulletproof your immune system. But that's going to happen in our free private group. Just click the link below, join our free private group, and then you add them to your free private group. Man, that's the best way to leverage Facebook that I've seen.
Yeah, it's working really effectively, not only for us, but also, again, in other businesses and many of our clients who have begun doing this. It's just amazing. The next step, so step 8 in the 10 things you need to be doing ultimately as part of the mobilization stage is to fill the webinar or the Facebook Live. So it's all about registrations. All of you know from hosting events in your offices over the years that that's the biggest challenge, is getting people to be registered. And so what we're recommending is doing some sort of a giveaway with that. So what's going to come with this registration is, and then you fill in the blank. So it's an awesome opportunity to add value to your audience. And I know, some of our doctors, for example, just give you an example of something people have done is, if they have vitamins and supplements in their business and they know, hey, right now, vitamin C or vitamin D, these are extremely powerful during this time. So we've had clients do that as an example. Say, hey, when you register for the event, you're going to get a bottle or a sample of this vitamin, which directly is going to boost and help you with your immune system. Like, that's an awesome win. Obviously, it's going to cost you something, but you know what? It's something that you're doing to help your community. It's a way you're investing and reinvesting in your community. So it's just an example. And you don't have to do anything that spends money like that. You can give somebody like a guide or a sheet or a mini ebook on some subject matter as well. So there's a lot of different things you can do, but a giveaway, that will help you actually capture the names and the emails and the numbers of people so you can actually start filling it. And then again, you want to send out a series of emails. That would be what we might call a nurture series or a nurture campaign, where you start to get people warmed up to what they're going to be getting into. You're building that value through the reminders of what's coming up for the webinar, reminding people so they get there, because again, the distraction factor is high. People's lives are busy and it's easy to forget. And then, of course, again, text messaging, we have found that's just so important, Doc, because when you look at email open rates versus text open rates, the clarity, it's very clear that most people, open their text, like 98 to 99% of texts are open, but emails, it's lower than that significantly, as you know, because you could just look at your own email inbox. So the reality is that you want to do both, but make sure that you include texting in that.
So Dr. Pete, I'll grab 9 and 10 to wrap it up. So, it's all about organizing your leads. Guys, remember, we're planning for what's to come next, which is mobilization. And we said, this is what you're going to need to do ultimately, right? So it's like, we did it now and then next. So we're talking about stabilization. It was like, do this right now, right? And then it was, this is what you're going to do next, which is reactivation. As we move into mobilization, this is marketing. These are the things that we're going to do ultimately. So we're shifting back into strategy, right? So as we're doing more planning and preparing, we want to start mapping out the opportunities that we have. So we go back to our our hot leads, warm leads, and cold leads. We want to start nurturing these lists of hot leads, warm leads, and cold leads for you to get in front of their people, whether it's digitally through webinars or dedicated webinars or Facebook Lives, et cetera, or if it's going to be live eventually. That's where we're planning on getting for the fall, getting out in front of groups live, right? So hot leads, of course, are when you have a relationship with the decision maker. Warm leads are when you have a relationship with somebody who can introduce you to the decision maker, or you've met them at a networking event. And cold leads means that you've actually bought a list, or you've found them on a web search or what have you, and you've jumped in and you've put yourself in front of them that says, hey, I see that you've got this awesome wellness program. I think what we have to offer would complement that beautifully. I'd love to connect with you, right? So hot leads, warm leads, and cold leads. This is all about the planning and preparing and set ourselves up for a really powerful and successful mobilization phase for our practice moving forward.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Now go and be remarkable.